All right, well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto. My name is Kevin, and what do we have here? Well, we have here a 2014 Porsche 911 Carrera 4S. Am I missing anything else? Absolutely not. That's about it. Who do we have to thank for this opportunity? It is none other than Cabriolet Motors in Morrisville, North Carolina, around that area, basically. Shout-outs where shout-outs due. This dealership just acquired multiple 911s. I have never seen so many well-spec'd 911s in one place before. Not even at a Porsche dealership do they have so many nicely equipped vehicles like this. And they're all used, of course. So if you're interested in 911, well, you're at the right place. Back to the 911, okay? This car, I'm mainly checking this out because I think personally this might be the best kind of sports car bargain in the used car market. Now hear me, I know this is very expensive, okay? We're talking about like $75,000, $80,000 here. The buy-in price of these vehicles is high, I do admit that. However, the resale value on these vehicles, the residuals, is excellent, and that's why I'm here to talk about this car, because yeah, you pay up for it, but in a year, 2 years, you can pretty much sell this vehicle and you can get pretty much all your investment back, or at least most of it anyway, because this car, this particular one anyway, has about 42,000 miles on it. Okay, it's a 2014 like I already mentioned, and it's stickered initially for about $126,000. Okay, it's got the Sport Chrono package. It's obviously the 4 and the S, and it's got the PDK, okay, which I'm going to be talking about more. There was the optional 7-speed manual, but this vehicle is obviously not that. But I think this PDK, I think you're about to see, is pretty excellent. It's got this mahogany metallic paint on it. It's got the optional 20-inch wheels on it, 245 wide tires up front, 305s in the back. Very interesting. Because it's the S, okay, it's got the 3.8-liter flat six engine, okay, produces 400 horsepower and about 325 pounds-feet of torque. Now, those are some good figures for a vehicle that only weighs, I think, like 3,500 pounds with the with the all-wheel drive on this vehicle, basically. So it's even got the sport exhaust on it as well. So a lot of great options with this particular vehicle. Heated and cooled seats, as we're about to see in the interior segment. So that's why I'm checking this vehicle out. Well-equipped car. It's not going to depreciate much from here because the thing is already like 6-7 years old now. But here's the thing, this car looks absolutely timeless. That's the design of this vehicle. The new one came out, obviously, the 992, but here's the thing with the 992. I actually like the way this 991 looks more than the 992, but you leave a comment down below and you let me know which vehicle you like the looks of the most. But this, because it looks so modern and sleek, nobody's ever going to know that this is like a 7-year-old car at this point. So that's one of the main things. It's like the Rolex of cars. It's highly desirable. It's very prestigious. Everybody wants one, and some of them even go up in value. This is the naturally aspirated motor. No turbos, no nonsense. This is going to be a sought-after vehicle. So enough talking. Let's go ahead and let's get this bad boy out on the road, because that's what's most important here, of course. I like how the parking brake automatically disengages. That's a good touch. I like that. Now this vehicle, obviously, before we get into the drive of this vehicle, okay, the main things that they change, okay, this is the new generation, 7th generation 991, okay? What you get is actually a lower car, a wider car, and a longer car. Don't let your imagination run wild. Those are the pragmatic things that they actually had to change with this car. And refinement was a huge deal with this car as well. But let's go ahead, I have everything in the comfort mode right now. See how all this stuff behaves here. A couple of nuisances in front of me, so I couldn't really wind it out completely there, but don't worry, we're about to fix that. But this car, in a lot of ways, this is the supercar that you can pragmatically use every single day. This car is a true jack of all trades, basically. Or at least that's what it needs to do, because there are high expectations for the buyers of a vehicle in this particular class of vehicle. It can't just be super capable. It can't just be fast. It's got to ride well. It's got to be quiet. It's got to be prestigious. It's got to be somewhat practical. It's got to do like freaking 20 mpg in the city and like 27 on the highway. It's got to be all-wheel drive. It's got to be all-weather friendly. There's so many things that this vehicle is doing that's why I highly recommend a vehicle like this. But this thing with the Sport Chrono package, with the all-wheel drive this vehicle. Not that it needed all-wheel drive because it's a rear engine platform anyway. The rear engine sitting over the rear axles, of course, everybody knows this, but they actually try to move it up a little bit for this generation, but not by much. It's still very much rear engined. So grip was never an issue with this thing, but this is just to make it really all-weather friendly. There's a gentleman by the name of Nick Murray, I hope I'm saying that right, but he would daily drive his car in winters, and it was great. He actually even pulled out a Jeep in the winter, actually. That's how capable these four-wheel drive 911s are, so that's very impressive. I'm about to bust this turn here in a little bit, but the brakes are sensational. Everything about driving this car is at a high point here, okay? And naturally aspirated, of course. Feels great to rev this thing out. Wow. That thing sounds glorious for sure. It's a very loud engine. I wasn't expecting it to be that loud, actually, but the turn-in is absolutely fantastic as well. Turning radius right there, very tight turning radius. However, I will say I do kind of notice like the wheels kind of rubbing a little bit, which is kind of strange, but that is one of the things I've noticed. I don't think it's a rubbing sensation. I think Nick Murray talked about this actually, so I don't think that's it. It's something else. It's something else vibrating. I don't know what it is, but I'm sorry, I'm kind of blanking on that, but that's one of the things I've noticed. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's bust this turn. The chassis, the capabilities of this thing is excellent. It's a very quick car. This is so effortless for street driving. I like this amount of performance. This amount of performance is what most people in this class of vehicle would expect, a car like this to have. But I think the regular car, the non-S model would be good as well, but here's the thing with the non-S, it's just the resale value. That's why I keep telling you to recommend buying this and investing a little bit more money into this, because I think it will pay off in the long run. Let's go ahead. Let's kind of switch everything into the more sport modes, I suppose. Put this in sport mode, and immediately when you put the vehicle in the sport mode, the sport exhaust actually activates. So let's see how loud this thing is. It's got like these rather strange paddle shifting paddles here. It's kind of unfortunate to see that because I think it's an option to get regular paddles. Those regular paddles are great, but these you have to press them in and press them out. It's very strange, but let's regardless, let's launch this thing and let's see what it has to do. A lot louder. Very nice indeed. Very impressive. It does become a lot louder when you switch the button over to the sport, that's for sure. This is the joy of this car. This thing is naturally aspirated. You get all the sounds. It's not muffled through a turbocharger. That's what I don't like about the later model years. I think it was 2016 and up when they switched over to the turbo models for all the different trims basically. Because the chassis is so good, because the suspension is so well tuned in this vehicle, you actually don't get a huge sensation of speed in this vehicle. You just kind of feel it in your gut a little bit, but it doesn't knock you back in your seat either when you brake really hard in this vehicle or when you accelerate really hard in this vehicle. It's just a really impressive surge. It's mainly that sound that really invigorates you. It's got a passion and soul there. But I will say, okay, this vehicle is doing a lot of things right. Is it riding well? Pretty well for the most part, but here's the thing though. There is a little bit of a road noise, tire noise I've noticed with this vehicle. That's the only thing, that's the only drawback I'm noticing here. These are pretty wide tires, especially in the rear, but that is probably the biggest kind of negative I found with this car is the sheer amount of road noise. I think you can hear it through the camera as well. It's very loud in here. I think I think these are like Pirelli tires. Swap those out, it'll make this car a lot quieter. Maybe get some Continentals on here. I think that'd be better because you don't need a super aggressive tire with this vehicle because it's got so much freaking mechanical grip and all-wheel drive grip. You don't need really aggressive tires on here. It's just not necessary. but it's doing a lot of other things well, okay? It is actually riding pretty well. This is not beating me up. They did extend the wheelbase of this car, and with that extended wheelbase, it's going to handle the bumps a little bit better. And this is actually not a very heavy car. Okay, it's like less than 3,500 pounds, but here's the thing. Porsche is one of the few companies to pull this off. They have like this nice pinned down feeling out on the road that typically a higher curb weight car has. Now, me personally, I do obviously own the LC 500, but here's the thing. LC 500 is a far more passionate vehicle. This vehicle, okay, even though it's doing a lot of things well, and I do recommend this car to more people, I always have this feel, there's like this level of douchebaggery associated with the personality of this car. It's like this car has like this high and mighty feel to it, like this car is doing me a favor by letting me drive it. I know that's very stupid and it's very subjective and it doesn't make a lot of sense to most people, but I can't help shake that feeling. It just feels like it's doing a lot of things so well that feels like I'm the privileged one to be able to pilot this car, like this car is letting me drive it. You know, it's a very dumb thing to say, but you know, it's just honestly how I feel. I get that that's not going to make any sense to really anybody, so ignore that. Know that this car is going to be ticking a lot of boxes that's going to please your ego, okay? Like the fact that this thing does 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds. The fact that it's prestigious, a lot of history with this brand, of course. The fact that this is hyper capable and it has like this level of handling that you will never exploit out on the public roads here. The Starbucks drive-thru is not a track, yet it'll decimate a lot of things. It has so much confidence at high speeds, okay? It just makes a lot of road noise, but again, swap out the tires, you should be good. Put some all seasons on here, that's all you need. This will be absolutely excellent. This isn't beating me up. This is fast. This has a level of capability around the corners that is just unmatched by most cars, and it is effortlessly quick. Yes, you can get away with owning the regular base Carrera models, but it's just that, just for the resale value purposes, I recommend getting the S model. So that's the thing. The steering, okay? Steering is a huge topic of debate with these vehicles. The fact that they went over to an electric steering rack. Honestly, this steering feels very similar to like a hydraulic rack. Actually, it's even a little bit improved because of the fact that it's a electric steering rack. It's got the smoothness of being electronic, okay? So that's one of the main things. So yes, now that we have this part, summarizing the drive here, it's like I mentioned, it's doing everything well, just a little bit of tire noise. But is this exciting? It can be. I mean, this is going to be the most capable car for the price. This is like a pragmatic supercar. Nobody's going to be looking at you all the time, every time, like you're driving like a freaking green Lamborghini Aventador. You know what I'm saying? This is kind of blends in, but people kind of know what it is. You get some attention, of course, but it's not as ridiculous as people might seem. I think the biggest highlights for me is this engine, not because of the speed, but because of just how great it sounds, man. It's got a great mechanical sound to it that I absolutely love. Compared to something like my LC 500, no, I don't believe it's as exciting as that vehicle. I don't think it has as much charisma, as much soul. I'm not just saying that because that's my own car. A lot of people wonder about this. Oh, should I just get the 911? To most people, yeah, just get the 911 because it's going to soothe basically all the needs that you have essentially. And I actually just drove a C8 Corvette last year as well. And compared to the C8 Corvette, this has a lot more charisma to it. It has like a more, how do you say, like a grown-up demeanor to it, both in the drive and the dynamics, and it just feels more proper, if you will. Again, it does a lot of things right here. And don't mind the Shelby hat. You know, I'm not paid and sponsored by Shelby. Not yet, anyway. No, I'm just joking. I'm not a big Ford guy anyway. I'm sorry for the distractions. And another thing, you know, coupled with this PDK transmission, it's amazing. I just wish it had the normal paddle shifters instead of this weird thing that you push in and out. But other than that, this thing is very much fully loaded with a lot of packages like Sport Chrono, Sport Exhaust. These are like $3,000-$4,000 options. So keep that in mind. Now, let's go ahead. Let's talk about this interior because we have my most favorite interior spec here that I really love. This kind of beige interior, this all beige interior, love it, man. And this has aged extremely well too, even after all these years, all these miles. Porsche leather always ages extremely well, so I'm glad to see that here as well. The steering wheel is great as well. It's very simplistic, no other buttons aside from the paddles, and it's very much driver focused. You got one-touch automatic windows for both windows here. And no, it is not double pane glass. I wish it was. It would kind of help with the refinement of this vehicle, but that's one of the only things. But I get it, though. You know, you don't want it to be super refined or else you don't get all the effect of the motor. So I get that as well. Now you got the Bose optional audio system here too, so that's what I'm saying. It's got a lot of options here, and it does sound pretty good. I do like it. It is worth getting. It is like, if you're in the used market, it's good to look out for that Bose option. I'm not saying it's like the best in the world, but it's a very good system. You got automatic headlights, of course. You got a regular turn signals and stuff like that. It's not like the BMWs, and it doesn't beat you up like a BMW M car either, or at least the new ones anyway. So that's good. Normal gear lever knob. And also, another thing with this interior, this is another huge change that they brought for the 991 generation. This interior, okay, it's straight out of the Panamera, basically. They tried to make this into a much more of a luxury car compared to the 997 anyway, because I didn't drive the old 997, I only drove the 996, and they do feel very barren inside. So this, compared to that, I mean, it is like a luxury car interior. It's the Panamera interior, basically. So I like that. Some people didn't like it, but I like it. Okay, I like the luxury. I think a lot of people expect this out of a vehicle of this price tag. And you have like this stack of buttons right here. Not too many, but you can raise and lower the spoiler. You got the Sport exhaust button, like I mentioned. You can adjust the dampers, and you got a Sport Plus mode as well. And Sport Plus is actually when you put the vehicle into the Sport dampers as well. So that's another thing you got to keep in mind. This vehicle, they touted a lot of fuel economy gains as well. So it's got auto stop start, which you can turn that off, which I always do, of course, but that apparently helps you get an extra 1.5 mpg, so according to them. But you got heated and cooled seats for both seats here. That's fantastic. You got your own display for the climate control. All of it is very easy to access, and I love how intuitive it is. So I'm very happy to see that. This infotainment, again, this generation infotainment is not my most favorite, but I do believe you have Bluetooth, so that's good. I would just use that, but you do have your own navigation, all that good stuff here as well. Funny enough, I don't believe that you get a backup camera here. Maybe that was an option, maybe it's not. Maybe you have to go into the infotainment here. I'm not sure, but it's one of the things. But yes, this infotainment, a little bit confusing to use, but whatever. You got your CD player in here if you want to optimize the sound experience. You got 200 on the dash here. I like the gauges right here. I like the way it's laid out, and I like how the steering wheel is cut out perfectly so you can see all of fuel gauges, your coolant gauges, all that stuff, oil pressure. You can see all that stuff, and you got the big tachometer in the middle right there, so that's great. Another thing, okay, I mentioned the seats before, how well they age. They're also very comfortable. These are like the sport adjustable seats with the 14-way adjustability. Very excellent. You have so much. I can't believe how much space is inside this cabin, because from the outside you wouldn't know it, just looking at it, but when you sit in here, I swear to you, you can be well over 6 feet tall and be able to fit in here no problems, because that's how low the seat can go, and that's how far back the seat can go as well. So even for taller people, this works. But I will say, getting in and out of this vehicle is a little bit more difficult. It's more of a low slung car. That's to be expected. That's one of the things I noticed. But this is, again, that's what I'm saying, very pragmatic. I can't believe all the things that they thought of with this vehicle. Now, other practicality things, the glove box is a fantastic size. The cup holder situation is not so great. I don't like that. And there's not a lot of space in the door pockets, and not a lot of space in the center armrest here, but at least you have these things, and it's very good to see. At least this is better than most sports cars. Again, that's fantastic. I will say the rear seats, totally useless in this vehicle. That is not the strong suit of this thing. I was like crouched up like a shrimp back there, so yeah, it's not good. I can't fit, really. I guess for insurance purposes, you can put children back there, but that's about it. Now, you can't open up the engine. This is not like the Cayman. You don't have two trunks in this vehicle. You have a slight storage shelf back there, but that's about it. The engine is very much hidden. Okay, you can't really access it. You can't really see it, which is unfortunate, but whatever. The front trunk, though, is a decent size. I think you can put 2 carry-on bags stacked on top of each other. I think it's big enough for that, so it's something to keep in mind. It's decently practical. And a reason for that is because it's got a strut-based suspension up front. So, I think somebody else, they got it misconstrued when I mentioned this in my Boxster review. When I said that a strut-based suspension is inferior, I mean the suspension geometry, okay? It is inferior to something like a double wishbone or a multi-link, okay? But the reason why they fitted this strut-based suspension is to give you more space in the trunk. It's for packaging purposes. A double wishbone or a multi-link it takes up more space, so then you'd have a more compromised trunk, and they couldn't do that. So they over-engineered the strut-based suspension to help give it the maximum amount of mechanical grip while giving you a lot of space up front as a trunk goes. So that's great. So that's a look at the drive and the interior. So summing up everything up, just buy this car, okay? Financially, it makes a lot of sense. If this is like one of your first kind of sports cars or whatever and you want to justify it, this is one of the most justifiable. I know it's a lot of money, even used, but it's not going to go down much from here because it's got that naturally aspirated engine, and that's a gem. Everybody wants it. So I know that this is going to maintain. Some people even actually make money buying these cars and keeping it for a few years. So something to keep in mind, okay? And most importantly, if you are an owner of this vehicle, please let me know how it's held up for you. I understand that this generation also got the direct injected engine in it. Let me know how that's holding up for you. Driving this car, are you still satisfied owning it for the long term? I think most people will be. I think the prestige alone is enough to make people happy. So I think it's a fun car. I think it's a super capable car, and this naturally aspirated engine makes it a lot of fun to ring out. So, and it rings past like 7,200 RPM. So that's great. And I'll also leave a link down to Cabriolet Motors information in the description box and a link to the next video here on the end screen. So I'll see you guys there. Take care and goodbye.